Alright guys, we're doing more fantasy baseball content, and here I'm going to help you go through your waiver wire so you can pick out the best and most important players you can add to your team. But first, I want to thank everyone for being back here and supporting the channel. We reached our goal after the last video of 4,000 subscribers. Thank you guys all so much for that, and now we're going to set the bar really high. I want to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of April. I know that's a big ask, but if you guys are here and you're enjoying what you're watching, please go down there and click that big black subscribe button. Otherwise, drop the video a like if you're enjoying it, and let's get into it. Now that we're a few weeks into the MLB regular season, there are way fewer obvious good waiver wire players to add. A lot of the guys that, again, were obvious, the superstar rookies, the early breakouts, they're gone now. You can't get them anymore. So we're going to do a lot more digging in this video to find the right players for you guys to add. Also, I have heard some of you guys in the comments saying you want deeper league type players, so I've added a lot more deeper league type players in this video too. Don't worry about it. But that being said, there are still some very obvious players who are breaking down and have legitimate star potential that are widely available in most leagues. The first one being Spencer Torkelson, first baseman on the Tigers. I shouted Torkelson out in my first waiver wire video of the season a few weeks ago, and somehow he's still barely 40% rostered on ESPN leagues. And that's crazy because it really feels like it's all actually happening for Torkelson. As of Monday, about 2 weeks into the season, he has 5 home runs, 8 walks, a 300 batting average, and 400 on-base percentage. The power and the patience that made Torkelson the #1 overall pick a few years ago and one of the top prospects in baseball soon after that finally seemed to be coalescing for him at the major league level, and the breakout feels so real. It's also funny that coming into the season, there were some playing time concerns with Torkelson. After the Tigers signed Gleyber Torres, they announced openly that Colt Keith would open the season as their first baseman. Kind of reading between the lines, making it seem like Torkelson was being at least pushed out or really had to earn his way back onto this team. It seems like that really lit a fire under him, and he looks like he's never going to give that starting job back. Keith started the first 2 games of the season for the Tigers at first base, but Torkelson has started every single game there since. He's hitting the ball incredibly hard, he's pulling it, he's lifting it, he looks so in control. The game is finally moving slowly for him, like we always thought it would when he was this mega prospect #1 overall pick. All systems go for Torkelson. There's no reason he should still only be 40% rostered. Next up is Joe Boyle, starting pitcher on the Rays, and he was called up in a bit of surprising fashion over the weekend, and he was amazing in his first start. He didn't allow a hit against the Atlanta Braves over 5 innings while striking out 7 batters, and most importantly for Boyle, he only walked 2 batters in that time. He's really struggled with command over the course of his career, consistently running 15 or more % walk rates in the minor leagues, and last year, in his biggest sample in the majors, walking 18% of the batters he faced in around 50 innings with the A's. But despite all of that, he is a stuff monster. He has an upper 90s fastball with incredible life on it that misses tons of bats in the strike zone. He also has a wicked slider in the low 90s that's just completely devastating. Also, in this start against the Braves, he debuted his new splinker that was totally lights out. The splinker is a crazy pitch. It's like a hybrid between a splitter and a sinker that only freaks like Boyle, Paul Skeens, Joan Duran, those kind of guys who sit 100 miles an hour can actually throw. Because you're throwing it with the split finger grip, but you're throwing it really hard, so it winds up acting a bit like a sinker with high velocity and with arm side run, but also with the drop like a splitter. If someone can throw it and command it, it's probably the closest thing we have to an unhittable pitch. And the funny thing is, as good the results as Boyle got, as well as all 3 of these pitches were working for him, he was still a bit erratic overall. Didn't exactly know where the ball was going kind of half the time, and he was still this good. If he's in the zone enough, all 3 of these pitches are so disgusting that hitters will not be able to find it. Alright guys, disclaimer here on Joe Boyle. The Rays sent him back down to the minor leagues after I recorded this video, so he's not going to be up for a little while. But because he got that spot start on Sunday, and because Zach Littell's been struggling a lot in their rotation, and they have plenty of injury concerns as there is, I'm still holding on to Boyle in 12-team leagues where I can afford the roster spot. Keep him on your team for a week or 2, see if he gets the call up again because he really proved himself in this start and it could be something special. Next up is another big breakout pitcher with a new team. It's Hayden Wesneski, starting pitcher on the Astros. He was the sneaky 3rd member of the Kyle Tucker trade going from the Cubs to the Astros along with Isaac Paredes and Cam Smith, and he's been sensational his first few starts with the Astros. He struck out 10 Angels on Sunday, and that came after only allowing 2 earned runs over 7 innings with 5 strikeouts against the Mariners on Monday. He got wins in both of those matchups, and it was a really great week for Wesneski. He originally went from the Yankees to the Cubs as part of the long-forgotten Scott Ifros trade, and that was as a pretty decent starting pitching prospect, but as a Cub, he was much more successful working out of the bullpen. He had a 4.2 ERA as a starter in Chicago, but a 3.5 ERA in relief. That's because his sweeper's always been his out pitch, and he just has an okay fastball with middling velocity. So with that as a starter, it wasn't really a great package against left-handed batters. When he was a starter with the Cubs, left-handed batters had an 820 OPS against him when righties only had a 630 OPS. That's like the difference between an all-star and a 4th outfielder at the plate. But then as a relief pitcher, when lefties weren't able to see his sweeper multiple times and he was able to juice out an extra tick of velocity on his fastball, that OPS against lefties dropped from about 820 all the way down to 680, which made him much more effective overall. But the Astros have really cooked with Wesneski. They've taken the sweeper out of his game a good bit. He's still throwing it, still a good pitch, especially against the right-handed batters, but he's barely throwing against lefties anymore because they've added a new curveball to his game that has plus drop and looked really nasty so far, along with an added comfortability in throwing his changeup and cutter. He also has a wide open spot in this rotation with the injury news last week to Spencer Arrighetti. breaking his thumb. He's a big time ad right now. I would not leave Wesneski on the market. The Astros have a really good history of making these adjustments with starting pitchers and having them coalesce quickly. And right now he has all the stuff to be a plus starting pitcher for the entire season. Don't leave him on your waiver wire. Next up is Chase Meidroth, middle infielder on the White Sox. The most impressive thing about Meidroth is his total mastery of the strike zone. He was on base 4 times his major league debut last Friday against the Red Sox, and that included 3 walks, while taking tons of close pitches. He basically never chases pitches outside of it and makes tons of contact on pitches inside of it. When he was in the minor leagues this season, he had a 100% zone contact rate. That means in AAA, before he was called up this season, he made contact with every single pitch that he swung at that was inside the strike zone. Every single pitch, 100%. You never see that. The White Sox acquired Meidroth this offseason as part of the Garrett Crochet trade, and funny enough, as Crochet completed 7 no-hit innings against his former team, the White Sox, on Sunday, Meidroth was the guy that broke it up after being part of that trade. Really funny coincidence. But also really impressive for a kid like Meidroth in his 3rd major league game to get a hit off of Garrett Crochet, one of the best pitchers in the league, as he was shutting his entire team down. Something else that's very important for Meidroth and his fantasy status moving forward is that he was called up before the PPI deadline this past Thursday. When I say PPI, I'm referring to the Prospect Promotion Incentive Program, which is something that Major League Baseball instituted in the last collective bargaining agreement to try and motivate teams for calling up their top prospects earlier in the season. You have to call up a prospect within the first 2 weeks of the season for them to be eligible for a PPI, which the White Sox did. And now, if Meidroth places in the Rookie of the Year award, they get an extra compensatory draft pick for it. That means that now they are motivated to play him as much as possible, and with this amazing on-base ability, hit him higher in the lineup so you can accumulate more stats and possibly get votes at the end of the year for the Rookie of the Year award. Also, in his first 3 starts with the White Sox, Meidroth played shortstop 2 times. The White Sox have a gaping hole at shortstop this year, and I'm not sure if Meidroth can handle that position defensively, but if they're comfortable letting him try it, it's another reason to keep him in the lineup every single day. Bottom line, he's going to be an on-base machine, and if he gets the top of this order, even a horrible White Sox lineup, he will accumulate tons of counting stats in fantasy. Next up is another recent call-up from this week is Chase Dollander of the Rockies. Dollander is probably going to be one of the most interesting players to evaluate in the early part of the season, mostly because he is disgusting, a mega prospect out of the University of Tennessee with sensational stuff, but he is trapped in Coors Field. And as we all know in fantasy baseball, Coors Field is undefeated. There hasn't been a relevant starting pitcher on the Rockies since German Marquez back a few years ago, and Dollander's stuff is much nastier than Marquez's was. His fastball sits 98 miles an hour from a low arm slot, but you could already see through his first 2 starts of his career, one in Coors Field and one out of Coors Field, that he was more hesitant to throw that fastball in Coors Field. That's because pitches move differently at Coors with that altitude. His fastball had less life, less induced vertical break, less hop, and it's a fastball that while it has very good velocity, it doesn't exactly have the best shape. So that shape coming down a little bit, which it will in Coors Field, will hurt that pitch. Still, he has a nasty curveball and a really nice cutter. But even those pitches were moving a bit less in Coors Field compared to out of it. And of course, he was much more effective in his second start of his career away from Coors Field against the Padres in San Diego, where he struck out 7, only allowed 2 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings. Dollander having those 2+ breaking balls is a really big deal. He also shows a changeup. Again, this is an amazing starters package. If he was on any team besides the Rockies, I would be shouting his name from the rooftops, telling you, get him absolutely whatever you can do, any place you can. But he is going to pay a drastic Coors Field tax, and he's a little bit homer prone, especially because he really just only has that one fastball, and it is hittable in the strike zone because the movement profile, again, isn't great despite the very good velocity. I objectively like Dollander a lot, but I can really only tell you guys to pick him up if you only plan to start him when he's on the road. I would really never ever play him in Coors Field unless he really proves over the next few weeks. Worth a speculative ad, but be very careful with him at home. Next up is Josh Young, third baseman on the Rangers, and the biggest thing about Young is he's healthy right now. Someone who's dealt with tons of really minor nagging injuries, wrist, ankle, feet, hamstring, lots of nasty stuff in his career. He's healthy and mashing right now. He's also drastically improved his contact rate in a short sample early this season, and it seems like mostly because of some swing changes, even some positioning changes in the batter's box. I've talked about this in my last few videos. Baseball Savant now has amazing bat tracking stats and also batter's box tracking stats. We can see how open guys' stances are, where they're standing in the box, and Young has made a 2-fold adjustment here, where he shortened up his swing a good bit, moved a few inches up in the box, and is letting the ball travel just a hair more. He's had some contact rate issues in the past, swung through a lot of pitches, but so far he's not doing that at all, and he has a bit more of an all-fields approach. I don't know if the all-fields approach is good. I like when guys pull their fly balls. It helps them access more power. But right now, Young has enough power that he is accessing that power to the opposite field. Again, I don't know how great that is, and this is also a very small sample, but he is swinging, missing less, he's striking out less often, he's squaring it up more, and this is a great Rangers lineup. And he's already demonstrated in a full year back in 2023 that he can hit the ball with authority. So pick up Young where you can. Next up is Edward Cabrera, starting pitcher on the Marlins, who had a very solid season debut last Friday after he's dealt with some blister issues and started the season on the IL. His stat line didn't look amazing for the whole game. He didn't really strike out that many guys. He still had the couple walks he always does, but he was absolutely cruising in this game up until he got to the third time around the order. Like literally cruising. He only had 62 pitches through 5 innings until he ran into trouble in that 5th and Josh Bell socked a home run off him. Again, third time around the order tax. But Edward Cabrera is a unicorn in the fact that he uses a nasty changeup that sits in the mid-90s as his primary pitch. He's really good at picking off strikes with it, and it's really difficult for hitters to track. Also, his fastball still sits in the upper 90s. It touched 100 miles an hour the other day. And his slider and curveball are both nasty, but he really can struggle to command them at times. When he puts him in the right spots, he gets some ugly swings and misses on them. But bottom line, Cabrera is a solid pitcher with some downside, also some upside, who's pitching in one of the best pitchers parks in the league and will definitely be secure in his role, as that Marlins starting rotation is horrific. There's no one really to push him. Cabrera is definitely worth an add, especially in your deeper 12-team leagues. Next up is Jacob Wilson, another guy who's been on this list before, but his roster rate isn't going up that much, so I have to shout him out again because he's worth adding to your guys' teams. He's a contact machine who's hitting over 300 right now and had a hit in each of his first 15 games of the season. And there's a little bit more power there. You're starting to see the influence of a little bit more power. He has 2 home runs on the year right now, which some people only thought he had 5 the whole season. So even just having 2 in the first couple weeks, it's a huge check mark for him. And that park in Sacramento is going to become a hitter's haven when it stretches out to 95 and 100 degrees in these summer months. And there's a good chance that Wilson's able to sneak a few more balls out. Him being a legit 15 home run guy, even though he's probably only going to steal 5, maybe 10 bases if you get lucky, with probably a high batting average, that makes him viable. The flip side of that is that he still hasn't walked. The on-base percentage doesn't seem like it will be existent, especially if he winds up getting cold at the plate. Also, with not much speed, he really is an interesting guy to roster in a rotisserie league because he's not contributing in that many categories. But in a points league where he's going to not strike out very often and stack all this contact, he's very interesting to me. Next up is David Festa, starting pitcher on the Twins. He was called up this past week to replace Pablo Lopez, and he has amazing stuff. Some of my favorite stuff in all the minors. He has a fantastic cut ride fastball that plays really well at the top of the strike zone, a tight slider that's just nasty, and he shows a changeup that's a decent enough wrinkle for him to get left-handed batters out. Also, this spring training, he was working on a 2-seam fastball that looks pretty good so far as well. He had a really ugly 4.90 ERA as a rookie, but he got pretty unlucky because he missed tons of bats, 28% strikeout rate with just an 8% walk rate, and all of his ERA estimators said that he really deserved to be a much better pitcher, probably somewhere in the mid-3s rather than the high 4s. He'd have a very different image right now if he pitched that well as a rookie, over what wound up being a 65-inning sample. The real problem right now with Festa is that it seems like the Twins do not trust him to go deep into games. They pulled him very early in many of his starts last season, and in his season debut last week, he was pulled with 2 outs in the 5th inning at only 65 pitches, and objectively, he was cruising. No one really squared them up the whole game. He is good, but all of his pitches don't really move that much. Again, it's the good cut ride fastball, it's a tight slider, it's a little changeup, and it's a 2-seam, so everything is kind of up and down together. So I'm sure the Twins think the third time around the batting order, guys will see him very clearly. But once they take the chains off him and he's able to get through a line the third time, 70, 80, 90, even 100 pitches, he becomes really, really interesting. But no matter what, right now, he's worth an add in your 12-team leagues. Next up is Jonathan Aranda, first baseman on the Rays. And Aranda is crushing the ball in the early part of the season. He has nearly a 1,200 OPS with 6 doubles and 2 home runs in his first 13 games. That's a guy who's locked in. And there's basically no one in the league hitting the ball harder as consistently as Aranda is right now. The batted ball metrics are nutty early on. And the coolest thing about this is that he's always had this in him. In his short samples, whenever the Rays have given him a shot, he's hit the ball well. He's just never been able to sustain as a starter. But now he is playing regularly. The plate discipline looks better than it has in the past. It's all systems go for Aranda. The one thing holding him back, especially in your guys' weekly leagues, is that he is in a platoon and sitting against left-handed pitchers. That still means that he's going to be playing in about 70% of the games, but you will have to manage Aranda a bit in your weekly leagues, checking out the pitching matchups and seeing how many lefties the Rays are matched up against. But he has been there every single game, first baseman against right-handed pitching. He's even playing first base over Yandy Diaz, who's been DHing, with Aranda, again, being the guy at first base. He's 26 years old. He's ready to rip right now. The Rays seem to trust him, and he is, again, crushing the ball. I have no doubt that he's going to be able to hit. The only ding in his value, again, comes from that platoon. Just be aware of the matchups when you're putting Aranda in your lineups. Next up is Jose Soriano, starting pitcher on the Angels. Usually I like to avoid Angel starting pitchers, but Soriano has such nasty stuff, you gotta make an exception. He has a 97-mile-an-hour demon sinker that hitters just simply can never square up, and a nasty knuckle curveball that plays off it really, really well. He has the potential to challenge Framber Valdez as the best ground ball artisan in all of Major League Baseball. Through his first few starts of the year, he's almost getting 70% ground balls, an unheard of number if he can sustain that over a full season. Once a pitcher gets 60% ground ball, something we should really notice. And again, that's reserved for some of the best ground ballers in the league, like Luis Castillo and Framber Valdez when they're right. Soriano, with that crazy sinker and with that curveball that lives below the zone, he truly has a chance to be up there with those guys. The problem is sometimes those pitches move so much and he doesn't really know where they're going that he can be very prone to walks. The walks have been moderately in check this year, hasn't been too bad so far, could get bad in the future, but he's already made 2 separate starts this year where he went at least 7 innings and allowed 1 or fewer runs. The strikeouts have kind of waxed and waned a little bit. Sometimes it will feel like feast or famine for Soriano, but get him on your team because you at least want him in your lineup when he has good matchups against bad hitting teams. Next up, last member of the big list, it's Shane Smith, starting pitcher on the White Sox. Smith genuinely has one of the nastiest changeups in all of baseball. It's so good that sometimes Baseball Savant thinks it's a curveball. That's how much this thing moves. But then the rest of his repertoire is just kind of eh. He has a fastball with some natural cut that can play up, but it just has average velo and sometimes just really sits in the zone. Then a hard slider that flashes plus, but really just doesn't move very much at all. But again, that changeup is the star, and that pitch alone, just with the rest of his repertoire being average, makes him somewhat viable. He survived a very tough matchup with the Red Sox over the weekend and looked good doing it. And again, that's one of the toughest lineups you're going to face in baseball. That's a really good sign for Smith. He's gone at least 5 2/3 innings in all 3 starts he's made this season, and he's yet to allow more than 2 earned runs in a single game. Again, he is on the White Sox though, which will hurt him. He'll have very few chances to win. His defense is going to be very, very bad behind him. But man, I can't get away from that changeup. This thing is so nasty. Another thing working in Smith's favor is that he was a Rule 5 pick this offseason from the Brewers. That means the White Sox have to keep him on their 26-man roster all year or he goes back to Milwaukee. That's a good reason to give him a bunch of starts. And I think with a bunch of starts, he can figure out how to be a viable pitcher in 12-team leagues, at least as a streamer, again, to use in good matchups. Now, there's going to be a new segment in these weekly waiver wire videos I'm making. I'm going to give you guys the stash list. These are the guys who are either very close to promotions from the minor leagues or players on rehab assignments who your league mates might have dropped or left on the waiver wire that you should be able to grab up because they will be back playing in about a week's time. First up are 2 prospects though. First is Nick Kurtz, first baseman on the Athletics. I've shouted out Kurtz in the past because I really thought he was coming up to the majors soon with that PPI deadline this past week. He's hammering the ball in the minor leagues. He has great plate discipline, otherworldly power, and over the weekend, the A's put Brent Rooker in the outfield, which could open up the first base job for Kurtz at some point soon. Keep an eye on Kurtz. Then Zebby Matthews, starting pitcher on the Twins. Totally nasty stuff. Might even have nastier stuff than Festa. I thought there was a good chance he would get the call with the Pablo Lopez injury, but Chris Paddock and Simeon Woods-Richardson are terrible in that Minnesota Twins rotation, and Zebby will get a chance soon. Then some injured guys coming back. Jack Leiter is due back this week after his blister issue. If anyone in your league is sleeping and they dropped Leiter, pick him up right now. He's nasty. Then Tony Gonsolin on the Dodgers. He will be back soon, has made a couple rehab starts. Great to have starting pitchers on the Dodgers. You're going to get wins. Great defense, great bullpen. Definitely worth an ad. Then Francisco Alvarez, catcher on the Mets. In terms of all catchers in the league, Alvarez has some of the best power potential. He has gone up and down a little bit in his career with the power. He's also broke a hamate bone, which has been known to sap power in the past, but in a 12-team league, he should be a starting catcher. Last up is Tobias Myers, starting pitcher on the Brewers. One of the big surprise breakout guys last season. Mixes up a lot of pitches, lots of soft stuff, good command. He'll be back in about a week or 2, so maybe if you need a starting pitcher and you have the roster spot to spare, stash Myers now for when he gets back. Now we have our deep league ads. I'm going to go through a lot of guys here very quickly. First up is Pavin Smith, outfielder on the Diamondbacks. Smith is crushing the ball right now. He's got 1,000 OPS in his first 15 games with 6 doubles too. Also amazing batted ball metrics, hitting the ball as hard as anybody in the league, but tons of swing and miss in his game, and he is sitting against all left-handed pitchers, so kills the ceiling a bit. Next we have Zach Veen, recently called up by the Rockies. First round pick, pretty big prospect. I don't know if he has enough to hit. Having a guy in Coors is helpful though, and he's going to steal a ton of bags, but again, a little worried about the hit tool. Real boom or bust potential with Veen. Next, another prospect the Rockies have called up, Adael Amador. Amador is a much safer skill set than Veen with tons of contact, tiny bit of speed, tiny bit of power. He also is kind of getting disrespected because he came up last year as either a 20 or 21-year-old. He didn't really perform well, but he was very young. Year older now. I think he has a good chance to stick with the Rockies, who have a wide open second base position. Next is Kyle Stowers, outfielder on the Marlins, hitting for good power right now in the middle of that lineup every day. Good compiler in a deep league. Can be this year's JJ Bleday. Then Luis L. Ortiz, starting pitcher on the Guardians. Very bad first few starts of the year, but just struck out 10 batters in his most recent start, and he did that by really increasing the usage of his cutter against right-handed batters. That cutter's disgusting. He was locating it well. Speculative ad is probably worthwhile on Ortiz because the Guardians are really good at pitching development, and he has nasty stuff. Then Jeff McNeil, second base in the Mets. Similar to Alvarez in the stash section, he is on a rehab assignment. He will be back soon. The Mets have gotten very little between Brett Baty and Luis Angel Acuna at second base. Jeff McNeil will come back, playing every day in a good lineup. That's valuable. Also, we'll be using the torpedo bat, trying to get some more power, so keep an eye on Jeff. Then going to run through a few pitchers. AJ Smith-Shawver, starting pitcher on the Braves, gets tons of strikeouts, crazy stuff. Still trying to figure out how to work it all. He's a young pitcher, but a lot of potential there with the strikeouts. Then we got Tyler Mahle on the Rangers. Tyler Mahle completed 7 innings for the first time since he threw a complete game shutout all the way back in 2022. Happy to see Mahle healthy. Good life on that fastball, but middling velocity. It's a wait-and-see approach, but again, in deeper league, worth grabbing him now to see if this sticks. Then we have Landon Knack on the Dodgers. He just got crushed by the Nationals, but he's got a plus fastball, plus curveball, plus changeup. Again, nice to get a cheap member of the Dodgers rotation, and a good time to get him after he got crushed, because the rest of your league mates won't be looking at him, but I trust the stuff. Then we have Easton Lucas, starting pitcher on the Blue Jays. Very unique cut-ride fastball as a big left-handed pitcher. Also with a distinct slider and sweeper that are both decent. He's getting strikeouts. I'm intrigued by Lucas. Next, Garrett Mitchell, outfielder on the Brewers. Playing every day, looks to be cutting down his swing and miss just enough to become viable. Some power speed upside. Then we got Tom Thomas to JC. Second baseman on the Cardinals, but has been playing shortstop with Mason Wynn going on the IL. I don't know if he's good enough to play shortstop, but so far this season in the major leagues, JC has hit the 2 hardest hit balls of his entire professional career, 109 miles an hour. He's a good hit tool, and again, he's going to be playing every day in a sneaky good Cardinals lineup. Then we got Hayden Birdsong, pitcher on the Giants. Didn't make the opening day rotation, lost out the 5th starter job to Landon Raup, but he has been really gross in a multi-inning relief role, getting tons of strikeouts. When he gets a rotation spot, he will be nasty. Then Quinn Priester, traded last week from the Red Sox to the Brewers. The Brewers do a really good job at getting a lot out of these kind of mid-looking starting pitchers that have a really wide arsenal. I like them to make a lot of adjustments to Priester and maybe make him this year's Tobias Myers, as a guy who just pitches the whole season with an ERA in the low 4s. Deep league, that's viable. Then Dylan Dingler, catcher on the Tigers. First off, go Bucks. I was in college at the same time as Dingler, watch him play a lot of the ball. Great power metrics for a catcher. Bad play discipline, but he is the full-time starting catcher in Detroit, and he's crushing the ball. Then last two, Gabriel Arias, utility guy, second base, third base, shortstop eligible on the Guardians. Some of the best bat speed in the league, tons of swing and miss, but they love him over there. He's playing every single day with some power upside. Last up, Jose Iglesias, also utility infielder on the Padres. He's now their everyday second baseman with Jake Cronenworth out and injured, and we know he's going to hit for a high average. He can steal a couple bags. Iglesias, again, worth it in a deep league if you really desperately need an infielder who's going to play every day. Now, lastly, I've given you guys a bunch of players to add. Now, here's some players you can drop. First off, Justin Steele, of course, out for the year. Sucks to see Steele go. Really exciting starting pitcher, but drop him. He's done. Then Marcus Semien. Again, I'm tired of Semien. He looks so old. If I'm in the 10-team league, I'm dropping Semien for the right player. Then Dylan Cruz, sadly, he sat 2 games over the weekend against right-handed pitching. He's kind of now falling into just a platoon. If he doesn't start to hit very soon, or even right now, again, 10-team league, probably comfortable dropping Cruz since he doesn't seem like he's exactly an everyday player anymore. Then we got Alo Lopez and the Marlins. Probably not worth adding anyway. It's just not that exciting of tools. Ronel Blanco on the Astros. I'm really just not excited by Blanco. He's not missing many bats. Good start over the weekend against the Angels. Maybe try to trade him if you can. But 10-team league, I'm really not holding my breath for Blanco. Then Mason Wynn, the Cardinals. I mentioned the IL with the back spasms. He wasn't really hitting that well anyway. Not a great fantasy stat set anyway if you're not in a very deep league. 10-team league, get him out of here. Then Yusei Kikuchi on the Angels. He's been horrible to start his Angels career, and the Angels are not very good at pitching development. It seems like the Astros got a lot more out of him than the Angels are going to be able to. Not in a Kikuchi right now at all. Then Eugenio Suarez and the Diamondbacks. He's been ice cold after a couple home runs early in the season. He always does this though. He always has slow starts and gets hot late. I guess you can drop him now. I don't know if I want to hold him through the cold streak to get to the eventual hot streak. Just keep an eye on Suarez. Then Alec Boehm. The Phillies have dropped him down between 6th and 8th in the order over their last few games, and he's just simply not hitting. Again, deeper league, he still will bounce back and be a compiler, but shallow league, I don't see it being worth it. Then last few, Jake Cronenworth's on the IL, just not good enough to hold through an IL stint, and Ivan Herrera. He is good enough to hold through an IL stint if you have an IL spot, but you never really want to be rostering 2 catchers in a shallow league. It's just not worth the roster spot. You gotta get someone else on there besides a second catcher. But all right, guys, thank you so much for being here again. This was a great waiver wire video. Drop any questions you have about ad drops you're making in the comments. Drop questions about trades. Drop other guys you have questions for maybe I didn't mention. Also, let me know. Did I go deep enough? Was this too deep? Definitely let me know the kinds of things you guys want to hear in this channel, because we're building a good fantasy baseball community. And again, I'm really happy and appreciate all you guys being here. If you're watching still and you're not subscribed, big black button down there. Please subscribe to the channel. 5,000 subscriber goal by the end of April. Help me get there. Drop this video a like as well. Thank you guys all for being here, and I'll see you next time.